Hey folks, Michael Mann from Michael Mann Security Services. Welcome to our second webinar of the day, Home Security and Defense. While we have our friends jumping on, we always have some folks that log on late, so while we're waiting on those folks, number one, welcome new folks. If you've not joined our webinars before, we have a number of webinars on our website, our Facebook page. A lot of that has to do with church protection or faith-based protection, but they do apply to what you do every day. But anyway, take a look at those if you feel the need to do that, and welcome to Home Security and Defense. Again, while we're waiting, let me go over how to get a hold of us. So you get us at our website at michaelmannsecurityservices.com. A lot of good information on the website, including webinars. We've got some white papers and some other videos. You can call us, or if you call that number, you're going to get Scott. Call him late at night. He loves that, 615-606-1006. I'll still have to look at that number. I don't know why I don't know that number by heart, because I should. Email us at scottm, SCOTTM, at michaelmannsecurityservices.com. And, of course, you're with us right now on Facebook at Safe with Man, M-A-N-N. Okay? All right. Hey, we got some stuff coming up that applies to what we're going to talk about tonight, so let me talk about that again as folks are jumping on. So, last 2 weekends, we had our most popular class, our defensive handgun. Both of those sold out. We have an urban rifle class this weekend, so that's Friday night and all day Saturday. That'll be again June 12th, this Friday, 6 p.m. to about 10 p.m. here in Brentwood, and then we have a private range that we go to all day long. Urban Rifle teaches you how to use your rifle or AR platform in what is normally considered handgun distances. This is a concept that Clint Smith, the great Clint Smith from Thunder Ranch, thought up many, many years ago in the, early to mid-1980s. It is a great platform, and so that's what we're going to be going over on Friday night and then all day Saturday. You don't need to have any experience with your AR. Just ask that you've got some sort of a zero on it. You need a sling. You need iron sights. You need a couple magazines and ammo. And, of course, you need to get on there and register and pay. All right? So we've got some slots. Go to our webpage, look at it, or you can go right to Eventbrite and you will see it. The next thing we have coming up, this is in July. We have a carjacking defense on Saturday, July 18th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We are teaming up. So Michael Mann Security Services teaming up with Sheepdog, Krav Maga, and Mount Gilead, Tennessee. We're going to go over the fundamentals of carjacking defense and some basic principles of defending yourself in a violent event like this. We're going to talk about maintaining situational awareness, use of force for a private citizen, what that means, defense against a number of attacks from in and around the vehicle, conducting personal threat assessments, how to do a snapshot threat assessment. That's an executive protection thing. I'm going to teach you how to do that. Selecting personal defense equipment. We're going to talk about some of that tonight. And, of course, the use of firearms in and around the car, what that means. Most of that is so you don't shoot yourself. Trying to pull a vehicle, or trying to use a weapon in a confined space like inside the car can be very, very dangerous, not only for the adversary but for yourself if you're not careful. The other thing, it's not on the website yet, July, I think it's 24th, 25th, we have our third defensive handgun class for the year. We'll have that posted on the website and Eventbrite here in the next couple of hours. Again, that's our most popular class. If you see it and you think you want that training, jump on that as soon as possible. They don't stay up very long and they fill up, okay? All right. So, expectations for tonight, about 30, 35, 40 minutes, we are going to talk about developing a physical protection program for your home and what that really means. The basics of providing physical protection for you and your family while you're in your home. The idea of this is we're going to talk about equipment and guns. It's not a gun webinar. We're going to talk about that. But this is teaching you how to protect yourself, and the best way to protect yourself, if you watch our other webinars on terrorism, protecting the churches, providing personal protection, it's thinking like the bad guy, and so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I want you to get in the right mindset. At the end of this, there will be a Q&A. That doesn't mean that you got to wait to the end. So if you have questions while I'm up here running my mouth, Scott is monitoring Facebook Live right now. He's going to see those questions. He's going to write them down and save them. And at the end of this, he'll ask those questions. So just hang out for 30 minutes as we get through the process, and I'll answer those questions if you have any. Then at the end, I'll ask any questions. So if you haven't sent questions in throughout the presentation, you will have a chance there last minute as we end this. So Q&A at the end. The agenda. So this is about physical protection. I don't think there's an expert in anything, but I've been doing this for a long time for government agencies, for big global corporations, for high net worth folks, for churches, faith-based organizations. And so I talk really quick when I get started. I'm going to use some terms that maybe you haven't heard before, so we're going to talk about that quickly first. What that means is I use those terms, the definitions for those terms. We're going to talk about the elements of a physical protection system. Even though this is like how you protect government facilities or people, this also applies to you as you're trying to protect yourself and your family and your home. We're going to talk about equipment. We're going to talk about legal requirements. People get confused about when they can and can't do something, and this is important. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with all this and what we're going to talk about. We live in the greatest country in the world, but with that, when we start talking about this equipment, use of force, and using it, there's a bunch of responsibility that goes behind that or with that, and so we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about the last thing, which is response, all right? The last thing that we want to be involved with, okay? And again, you guys have heard this, especially if you've come to our other training or webinars or gun classes. Physical protection is about prevention, not response. I'm going to go over that. Your job, especially if you're here for home defense, is to protect yourself and to protect your family. Prevention is about stopping something from happening, not responding to it. That is physical protection, okay? The police, our first responders, respond to something. It's our job to prevent it, okay? So it's about prevention, folks, not response. All right, so let's talk about some terms real quick. Adversary. When I say adversary, because I do security work 23 hours out of the day, okay? I don't sleep a lot. I do a lot of working. The adversary is the bad guy. In this tonight, we're talking about burglars. We're talking about home invaders. That's the adversary. PPS, or physical protection system, is a combination of people, which is you and your family, procedures. Now, that doesn't have to be something written down. It just may be what you do when something happens. You've planned it. You've rehearsed it. And equipment. So people, procedures, and equipment that are brought together to protect something that has a positive value to you. And tonight we're talking about your family because we're talking about protecting your home. And maybe, like, if you don't have a family, maybe your dog or your hamster or your ducks, whatever that you want to protect in your home, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So that is a physical protection system. SEPTED is crime prevention through environmental design. That is security by design. We're going to talk about that. Some of the basic principles in the beginning are SEPTED principles. A long time ago, I got certified to teach that or practice that nationally, and so some of those principles we're going to put into this presentation. A danger area is any location that provides you or your family little to no cover concealment. Cover means something that's going to stop a bullet. Concealment is something that's going to hide you from something. And so a danger area provides little to no or none of any of that. No cover, no concealment. Okay? It's important for later. Deadly force is any force likely to intended to cause death or serious bodily injury. Let me say that again. If you carry a pistol, you should memorize this definition and the elements. Deadly force is any force likely to or intended to cause death or serious bodily injury. In the state of Tennessee, if you're here with us in the state of Tennessee, you're a resident, you have a carry permit, guard card, whatever, you don't know that definition, go to TCA 3911-611 and TCA 3911-612 and TCA 3911-621. You need to know those TCA or Tennessee code annotated, those very specific codes. That is the law wrapped around defending yourself and your family in the state of Tennessee as a private citizen. Deterrence. Deterrence is my ability to convince the adversary, the bad guy, that my physical protection system is too tough to defeat. Now, if I can't do that, because actually we can't measure deterrence in physical protection, if I can't do that, at a minimum what I want to do is impact his or her motivation to pick our house as a target. And we're going to talk about how to do that tonight. Even though that can't be measured, that is very important physical protection, especially when we start talking about protecting our home and our loved ones. Detection. Detection is the actual discovery of some sort of adversary activity. So I discover something before really the bad thing happens. Now, the key to detection is to discover it early. I want to discover it when it's outside, and we're going to talk about things that help you do that here shortly. Okay? Delay is slowing down of adversary progress. That means I'm going to use something that slows down the bad guy's ability to get to my family or get to me or get inside my house. Okay? Intermediate weapons. Intermediate weapons are tools that you use to defend yourself or your family when the use of deadly force is not appropriate or justified, but empty hand control is not an option. So you can't use your hands. And maybe that's because, like, you don't know how to do it. Maybe the person is bigger than you are or stronger. And so deadly force is not justified or authorized, but these intermediate weapons or tools would be because they neutralize a threat. Okay? And then, of course, response is going to be those actions taken by you or by somebody, maybe it's the police, to neutralize that threat. Okay? So a lot of definitions, a lot of terms. Hope you wrote those down. If you got questions, email Scott. He's back there waiting on you. Okay? All right. So let's get into the bad guy stuff. And again, remember, this is basic stuff that involves protecting you and your home as a private citizen. All right? A lot of this stuff I've learned doing government work for many, many years, but it still applies to you. It's basic. The basic fundamentals are the fundamentals of physical protection. So let's talk about the bad guy real quick. I want you to think like the bad guy. To be successful in protection, you must understand the threat. Whether I'm protecting a church, a United States embassy, a U.S. naval installation, a private Christian school, your home, or a data center, you need to understand the bad guy. And so here's what this adversary, this bad guy, this burglar, this home invader, here's what this adversary needs to be able to successfully get into your house and harm you and your family. Number one, information about your target. Now, look, understand most burglaries before COVID-19, right? Most burglaries happen between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The majority of burglars want nothing to do with people that are home. In fact, if you're home and it's a burglar, more than likely they won't pick your house. They want to get in and get out quickly. But there are burglars that can be violent. They do break in when you are there. Most home invasions, before I get into this, understand most home invasions are linked to another crime. So the reason why the home is invaded is because there's other criminal activity there. And the criminal or the adversary at this point is resource driven. They want something from that other criminal element. Now, there are home invasions that are specifically planned against innocent persons who have nothing to do with crime, but that is a small percentage, but we need to address it. If you're a homeowner, this fits into your threat spectrum or what you're trying to defend your home and your family against. Okay, so here's the first thing the bad guy needs, information about your target or your house. So, is it a soft target or hard target? This gets into how aware you are of what's going on in your neighborhood, what happens during the day, what happens at nighttime. What does this mean? If you really want to understand how to do this is a 30-minute webinar or seminar, then join us for our Israeli Security Concept class this Sunday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. It's on our website. Even though it applies to protecting houses of worship and private Christian schools, these are concepts learned in Israel. I learned in Israel, concepts I learned in other places. It will teach you how to understand your bad guy that might be targeting your house. Number two, they need the element of surprise. They want to know that you're not going to know when they try to get inside your home or that place that you're trying to protect. That gets into methods of detection, which we're going to get into next. Your ability to early to detect something that's not right. Then they have to gain entry. And if you're setting your house up right, which we're going to talk about today or tonight here in just the next few minutes, you're going to have multiple layers of barriers where they are forced to go through multiple layers, or they must be forced to gain entry into multiple layers. This gets into middle and inner layer, and we're going to talk about that. They must control the situation. This gets into your ability to defend yourself and your family. Control usually means it's overwhelming because of the element of surprise, so they surprised you because you didn't detect it. And so because of that, they've got in very quickly. Maybe they have weapons, and they control the situation. And, of course, at the end of the day, they're not suicide bombers. If they're burglars or they're home invaders, they need to escape. They need to get out. So these are the things, we start talking about tactics, the things that the adversary needs to be successful. These are the basic elements for this to happen in your home. Okay? Any questions so far, Scott? I can feel the motivation even though they're on the other side of the camera. Okay? All right. Okay. All right. So here's what I want you to think about. Your home is like a layered defense. This doesn't mean we're going to have like wrought iron fences and guard dogs walking outside. It's okay if you've got that. Like if you got the money to do it if you're worried about it. But we're going to talk about a layered defense. We're going to talk about thinking like the adversary. So we're going to think about from the outside in. Most of the time, if you pick up the phone, you call an alarm company, you say, look, I need a burglar alarm put on my house. Somebody's going to show up. They're going to come up with a tool belt and a big truck, and there's going to be this logo on the truck, and they're going to charge a monthly fee and an installation fee, and they're going to think about protecting the home from the inside. I want you to think about protecting the home from the outside. You need to think about the way the adversary, the bad guy, is thinking about getting in your house. So when we think about it that way, we think about this in layers. We have an outer layer, which is where we start, which is outside, your yard, at the edge of the street there as it comes from public domain into private domain. So that's that outer layer. The middle layer is going to be going up to your front porch, your curtilage, right there at your doors, your windows, or in your portals where someone can actually force their way in and get in like a point of entry. Then the inner layer is going to be once they come through that door, so inside your living room, your hallways, your bedrooms, your kitchens, your safe rooms, whatever, we're going to get into that. So as we start talking about layered defense, I want you to start to think about it that way. We start on the outside, then we work our way into the middle, then to the inside when we start talking about security and defense. Remember, as we start to talk about these very basic elements here in just a couple seconds, our goal here, deterrence, is to psychologically impact the bad guy's motivation to pick our house. I hope that makes sense, okay? All right. So let's talk about the outer layer, some things that you can use, okay? So symbolic barriers. Symbolic barriers are those elements that are in place that separate public space from private space. So this is like where the street ends and your yard begins. Believe it or not, there are these symbolic barriers that you can put up that can create deterrence, okay? One might be signage. Like put a sign up to say, no trespassing. You might put up a sign that's got an alarm company's name on it. Even if you don't have an alarm company, even if you don't have an alarm, maybe having that sign in your front yard might tell the burglar or the home invader, look, I want to go somewhere else because I think he or she's got an alarm there, and that is an element of detection that might notify that person that I'm there before I actually get inside the house. Again, this is deterrence. We can't measure it. But these are symbolic barriers that you can use that might convince or impact that adversary's motivation. A gate, and I don't mean like a big wrought iron fence with a big lock on it. It can be just something simple that keeps your pets inside. Like it keeps them inside the yard. But what it does tell someone that is conducting pre-attack surveillance is that you take care of your property, you care about your property. There's probably elements inside the house that's going to make it hard to get inside, and that you care about it. And so that might make it harder for them to actually get inside. Years ago in the 1970s, there was something a criminologist came up with called the broken window theory. And the broken window theory was based off of, if I'm in a part of town where the houses and the businesses have broken windows and the grass is overgrown and people don't take care of the house, they don't care anything about the houses or businesses, and that invites criminal activity. A lot of times when we use these symbolic barriers and we take care of what we have, that can tell the adversary that we care about our stuff and we're probably going to protect it. Make sense? Okay. All right. So that's when our layered defense, our outer layer, the use of symbolic barriers. Now the use of symbolic barriers, we talk about on our middle layer. Again, signage. So we talk about the middle layer right there at the door, our windows, those points of entry where the adversary can actually gain entry. So it could be signage. It could be something as simple as, hey, I got a dog in here, don't come in. Beware of the dog. If you get in here, you're going to get bit. Bad guys don't like dogs for whatever reason, especially mean ones. Maybe you don't have a dog. Maybe you've got a Chihuahua or what's another small dog, Scott? I don't know. Yeah, a winter dog, the deadly winter dog, okay? Maybe it's not a big dog, but this might be enough with your other symbolic barriers to tell the adversary, look, the guy next door has none of this, okay? Lighting. Lighting is, proper lighting is the biggest deterrent for nighttime crime. Why? Because it is a function of detection. It provides lighting, very specifically motion lighting, especially on that middle layer or even the outer layer, creates that detection point early. It lets you know that someone is outside when normally maybe someone isn't. The light comes on, you see it, maybe you get that on your security system, and it puts you at an alert. So that is a form of detection at the middle layer, but lighting is still a symbolic barrier, okay? I want to put lighting anywhere where there's a portal, like a door. I want to put lighting anywhere where there is a blind spot that I could not see that could conceal or hide adversary activity. Another a form of detection on that middle layer are going to be cameras. Now, here's the good news about cameras. We got some here. We don't sell equipment. We do gear reviews. We want to make sure that things are relevant, that they're reliable, and they're reasonable. But just understand, unlike the old days where we spent a lot of money to hardwire cameras into our house, somebody came out and had to drill holes. Today, there's a lot of do-it-yourself camera systems that you can go to Home Depot, you can go to Lowe's, you can go to Amazon, and you can put them in yourself. They're very easy. They're done in a couple minutes. They're on a Wi-Fi system. They run off your Wi-Fi, and they're very inexpensive. Okay, now there are vulnerabilities associated with them, and we'll get into them. But understand today, cameras or methods of detection at that middle layer are very easily, number one, to get because they're reasonably priced and they're everywhere. And number two, they're very easy to install or actually to implement. Okay, so outdoor cameras, another form of detection. Okay. Middle layer, physical barriers. Understanding we're going to roll through this as we start to show this equipment. If you have a deadbolt, very specifically on an exterior door, I want a 1 inch, that 1 inch throw bolt that goes deep inside that frame. Okay, that's going to lessen that vulnerability of that door. There are reinforcement kits now that you can buy at Lowe's. There are big companies that make them. They are under $100. They reinforce the frame of the door. The frame outside of the lock is the next most vulnerable point of your door when someone tries to force it open. And most burglars will kick the door open. They will force the door open to get in. So there are products now that you can buy at your do-it-yourself stores for $100 or less that you can actually install in about 30 minutes, and they're going to help reinforce that door. So it's a physical barrier. Location or placement of decorative glass. If you've got glass on your front door, which you might just want to be aware of, if somebody broke that glass, how easy it would be for the adversary to get across or get inside there and actually unlock that deadbolt and get in. And then, of course, you have if you don't have that type of money, then you can get your Master Lock locking bar. These things are $20 or less on Amazon. You can also get them at Lowe's or Home Depot. And they actually rest up against the bar, rest here on the ground, and it makes it much harder for that adversary to force his way in. And remember, gaining entry is one requirement for that adversary to get in and be successful. Okay. This also works this way. If you've got a sliding glass door, you can lock this into that track, and it'll keep that door from coming open. Okay. So these are physical barriers that you can use that are very cost effective at that middle layer. All right. We talked about this layer defense in the inner layer, camera systems, cameras, motion detectors. You've got contacts again. Today, you can drive down to Home Depot, you can drive down to Lowe's, or depending on where you are, you can go to Amazon Prime if you're willing to pay that $100-something a year, like same-day delivery. Sometimes 4 hours later, the cameras, the motion detectors, and even the gateway will come to your house. Now, understand we talk about these Wi-Fi driven or operated cameras. There are some vulnerabilities with them. The cool thing about them is I can see these on my iPhone. Like anywhere you go, you can pull it up and you can watch them. You guys have seen this. Vulnerabilities with these cameras, number one, it works on a Wi-Fi system, so it's only as good as your network. Okay. Two, so like if you've got bad storms, if you've got issues with the gateway, sometimes if you have power issues, you could have problems with these cameras. So just understand there are vulnerabilities, but the cool thing, they're inexpensive. You can install them yourself, and they are a method of detection. Now, I want to detect outside, right? I want to detect as far away from the problem as possible so I see it coming early. But again, we can use cameras, we can hook up the motion detectors, and of course the gateway in our rooms. Understand also as you use these that you're talking about 100 to 150 maybe feet of coverage. So depending on how big your house is, depending on like the layout of the house, you may have to purchase multiple pieces of equipment when you buy these Wi-Fi driven cameras. Okay. All right. Let's talk about a safe haven real quick. I promised to keep this at about 35 minutes. We got about 10 minutes left. A safe haven is a location where you and your family can go, where you can barricade yourself in while you're waiting on the first responder. Let me cover this real quick, and I'm going to go into the elements of a safe haven. The last thing that we want to do is respond. The elements of a physical protection system are deterrence, detection, delay, and response. There is a reason why response is the last element in our physical protection system. Response requires us to have to neutralize the threat. If you're in the state of Tennessee, we live in a great state. It's gun-friendly. It's absolutely beautiful. East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, some parts of West Tennessee, right? But for the most part, Tennessee's a beautiful place. We have pretty good laws too, pretty cool, pretty relaxed laws on the use of deadly force. Very specifically, when we're trying to protect our homes, our vehicles, when we're inside of our businesses or any other dwelling. But understand, if we wait or if we have to respond, if we don't get into a safe haven, there could be criminal and civil liability. So response is the last thing we want to do. So a safe haven is this place where we go when we catch that early activity, we catch it outside, we get our family members, we go inside. The elements are a safe haven. Number one, it's locked. So I have enhanced barrier systems in place, and that doesn't mean $10,000, folks. It means you have a solid core door. You can go online and buy a solid core interior door for $300 or less if you shop around, okay? I want to have a deadbolt or maybe multiple deadbolts. So deadbolts are that 1-inch throw that digs really, really deep into that frame. Another thing, buy that reinforcement kit that reinforces the frame. In addition to that solid core door, it's going to make it very hard for that adversary to break down that door into that safe haven. You can even add the locking bar to add another piece if you've got this thing laying around, okay? What this does is this delays the adversary from coming or getting to you and your family members. Now, understand, the door has to lock. I need to be able to go even inside the safe haven to another location that locks. I need communication equipment, so I might want to have a cell phone. I might want to have a mobile battery just in case something bad happens to the cell phone. Mom forgot to charge it up because we were on vacation. Came home, she forgot to charge the cell phone. Somebody breaks in, home invasion. I look to see I've got one bar. As I'm on the phone screaming to 911, we lose our battery. So maybe I need to have a mobile battery or a portable battery that plugs into that cell phone next to it in a case somewhere. Also, we might want to think about in that safe haven outside of communication, medical stuff. I can do something as simple as having gauze and maybe just like a SWAT tourniquet, to something, even more drastic or more in-depth as something like this, where we spend $100 on some sort of stop the bleed kit, or maybe somebody has a heart attack and it's good to have an AED inside. I priced refurbished AEDs actually yesterday. They're about $500. A new AED costs you $1,400, but refurbished is about $500, and they're just good to have around your house anyway, because the risk of you dying of heart disease is much higher than it is from dying from a home invader or a burglar. So just some things that you might want to think about in your safe haven. So you might be asking questions right now. Well, hey, in the state of Tennessee, there's the presumption under the law that if someone breaks in my house, I can use deadly force. Why would I run to a safe haven? We don't have to. No, you don't. But this protects you from any unseen criminal or civil liability that you might incur if you have to use deadly force. Remember, deadly force is any force likely to intended to cause death or serious bodily injury. This is something that helps you not do that. It might force you into this place. You lock yourself in. You call 911. The adversary sees he can't get in. He takes your stuff. He gets out. Okay? So it saves you from having to use deadly force. What if you have a second-story safe haven? You got to get out of the house. Maybe you don't have the tools to defend yourself or your family. Maybe you don't believe in them. Maybe because you have kids, you don't want weapons inside your house. What if I'm on a second story and I need to get out? What does that mean? So if you're on a second story, guys, these are like $35, kiddie fire escape ladder. Now, they say that you only use them once, and the reason why you only use them once is because once you unravel this thing, it's really hard to get it back together again, but you can reuse it. You can get these at Lowe's or Home Depot, or you can order on Amazon, and I know they're under like $45, okay? I've got one sitting next to my bed with all my other equipment to keep us safe in the case of a burglary, a violent burglar, or some sort of a home invasion. So if I got to get out, I've got an escape ladder to get people out in the yard, get them out and away from danger. Okay. Remember the use of deadly force. Again, do you have to go to a safe haven? You do not. I will tell you, response is the last thing that you want to do. Again, there is a reason why it is the last function in our physical protection system. It's always the last resort. It puts you in imminent danger, and remember, if you know the law, before I can use it, I must, or my family, under 3911, 611, or 612, must be in imminent danger. I have to believe that to be real, and that danger, that imminent danger, and I'm going to have to articulate that to somebody at some point. And when I say somebody, and don't get me wrong when I say this, but this is true, that might be a detective that has an associate's degree in criminal justice. He's not an attorney. He's not a district attorney. He's taking statements down, and he's writing down information. And sometimes when information is communicated to a person and they write it down, sometimes that information is not always recorded properly. But whatever is recorded might go to a district attorney, and it ends up somewhere else. And so there's always a vulnerability that something's misconstrued. And if that does happen, that might put you at risk for civil and criminal liability. You don't ever know, okay? The force you use has to be reasonable, even in the state of Tennessee. Reasonable means that another person, and this other person, you're not going to know them. They're not your peer. They've probably never heard your name. They don't have the training experience or maybe the knowledge that you have, but they're going to determine if this goes through some sort of a civil process or criminal process because someone finds out that you've done something improper, or that's what they believe. Someone that you don't know is going to look at this and determine whether it's reasonable or not. So there is a risk behind that. And then, of course, I always tell everybody this, leave it to the professionals. If I can get into a safe haven, barricade myself in, let them take my property, call 911, let them show up. Let them show up, let them get in there and try to stop the bad guy. If they're there to get property, let them have it. The property doesn't belong to you anyway. It was given to you by God. It belongs to Him. Just like all this stuff, anything that we have, anything on our pockets here, it doesn't belong to us. Let them have it. They'll pay for it later, trust me. Okay? So there's a reason why we want to stay in the safe haven, but if we decide to use deadly force, here's some of the risk involved. Okay? Leaving a barricaded position. I started doing this as a kid. I was in fast company in the Marine Corps. I went to my first close quarter battle school at 19 years old. Learned how to defend U.S. embassies, military bases, and actually went to those locations in other parts of the country to conduct anti-terrorism operations and protect American citizens against the threat of terrorism or violence. Was a SWAT team member in Nashville, Tennessee. That we really didn't get a lot of CQB training there. Later went to work for the U.S. Department of Energy, went through another extensive CQB program. I designed these programs for nuclear facilities, teach this to private citizens all the time. I'll tell you all that to say this. The last thing that you want to do is go on a clearing operation in your house. I don't want to leave the safe haven unless I have to. The only reason I'm going to leave my safe haven is to go to the other side of the house to get family members that I need to get out and get them to safety. If everybody's in one room or in my safe haven, lock it, don't leave it, okay? Here's why. Here's why I don't want to leave. You got to get to other family members, so you have to cross danger areas. Are you going to do it alone? If your wife is in there with the infant and you've got a 5-year-old down the hall, what are you going to do with your wife and the infant? You're going to lock them in? You're going to take them with you, okay? What does that mean? Confronting threats. What's your use of force continuum? If you don't know what that is, then you need to rethink. If you're thinking about you're going to respond to a burglar or a home invader and not lock yourself in, you need to reconsider that if you don't understand the force continuum. Communication. How are you going to talk to your loved ones? How are you going to talk to the police? What does that mean? How many cell phones do you have in the house? Are you going to grab it? Is it in a bag? How do you communicate with someone, including responding police officers or police officers trying to get inside your house, or even other family members in the house when you need to talk to them if you're conducting some sort of a clearing or response operation? And what are you going to do when you reach those other family members? Are you going to lock yourself in there? Do they have a safe haven in their room? Do they have enhanced materials on the doors? Or is there a place there where you can get them to safety? Or are you going to have to take them back to another portion of the house? So these are things to think about when you start talking about somebody breaks in my house, I'm going to go look for them. I'm going to grab my gun. You might want to think about that. Okay? Response equipment, just real quick, we have some things here. And by no means am I telling you need to buy all this stuff, but if you want response equipment and you're going to buy it, here's some things to think about, okay? The weapons you see here, there's no live ammo, no live weapons in this room. These are either inert blue guns or they're airsoft guns, all right? If you're going to, so let's talk about intermediate weapons first. You don't have pistols, you're afraid of them. You don't want them. You can get pepper spray. Taser now makes a taser pulse. It's really, really effective. These are intermediate weapons you can use to neutralize threats, potentially, at least maybe to get away, okay? Handguns, we talk about handguns. I don't want just a gun. Statistically, when private citizens and police officers get into gun battles or when they get into shootings, they don't run out of ammo. Now, most of the time, what happens is they cause something to go wrong with the gun. There's a malfunction or there's a stoppage. So the idea of carrying extra ammunition with these weapons is not to reload. It's because something bad's happened to the weapon, and I need extra equipment. So if I'm going to have a handgun, I probably want to have this set up in my room. I want a belt. I want a durable handgun. I want a holster that covers the trigger guard that's belt mounted, extra ammunition, and a magazine pouch with it. And if I decide I want to be really high speed and have a light on the pistol, this is an airsoft gun like we've got here, I don't want to have to, if I'm searching with this light, then that means I may be pointing that at someone else, right, because it's on the pistol. So I might want to have a secondary flashlight to actually search with. Use a handheld flashlight technique, all right? So just a lot of stuff to think about with handguns. Shoulder-fired weapons. People say, hey, look, I want a shotgun, whatever. If you want a shoulder-fired weapon, whether that's a shotgun or carbine, inside your house to defend yourself, and again, I would say defend yourself from your safe haven if you're able to do that. What you want, minimum, iron sights on the rifle or the shotgun. I'd want some sort of a light source. I want a sling to be able to control it. And you might want to think about extra ammunition somewhere, right, for that shoulder-fired weapon. Again, not to reload, but something might go wrong with the weapon, and I have to change those magazines out. That's probably not going to happen, but some things to think about when we start to talk about response equipment. But remember, response is the last element in our physical protection system. Get this ready behind closed doors in your safe haven with your family locked behind that safe haven or that enhanced door with them, with you, so you don't have to do this. You're on the phone. Let the police show up. Let them deal with it, okay? All right, hope I got across to you. Hope you guys learned something out of this. A lot of basic stuff. Hope you understand about the basics of physical protection. It sounds like we've got a question. Go ahead, Scott. Yep. Yep, so Beverly from Nashville asks, is it necessary to hide a security camera that's outside of your house? So, number one, it's not necessary, no. But two, it just really depends on the use of the camera, Beverly. So I would say if you're trying to catch someone doing something and you want to do that covertly, then you probably would want to hide it. So if someone's stealing your Amazon packages, then it might be a good idea to hide the camera. However, it can't be proven, but if I have cameras mounted on the outside where people can see them, it might let the adversary know that you have a physical protection system, which includes detection, and that might deter an adversary. No way to measure that, but it might work out that way. So very long answer for, hey, it depends on what you're using the camera for, the purpose. Any other questions? Hey, Beverly, thank you so much. Folks, if you have other questions you don't want to ask us because you were shy, I promise we won't pick on you. Hey, send us an email, ScottM, SCOTTM, at michaelmannsecurityservices.com. You can always send us a message here on Facebook at Safe with Man, MANN. You can go to our webpage, michaelmannsecurityservices.com. Look us up on our training and events. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up, including this weekend, throughout the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We have some stuff in July, and we'll continue to have stuff in July and August that we're going to be posting here very soon. Again, shoot us your questions, your emails. Got defensive handgun stuff coming up in July, which sells out very quickly. And we have the Israeli security concept coming up this Sunday. It is a virtual instructor-led training session, which means it is on a Zoom online platform. You can be in your pajamas, sitting on your couch, on your laptop, learning how to protect your home against everything from home invaders to terrorist attacks. Seriously. And so this is things I've learned in Israel and other places. It's very inexpensive. Go to our webpage under training and resources. You'll see it. You can register. All right. No more questions, folks. It's been 40 minutes. We said 30 to 40 minutes. We're right on time. Thank you for joining us. Hey, please be careful. A lot of crazy things going on in the world. But listen, folks, none of this is new. And we know the end of the story. It's probably just going to be uncomfortable for a while as we're down here in the middle of it. And remember, it's about prevention, not response.